Good morning, my name's Trevor, part of a charitable giving team, so you'll probably see a slide about how to donate to Friends Church. What a great conversation as a team this week about why we go to Friends Church and why we support it financially, and it was a really healthy conversation because it got me thinking. I don't know if you have one of these, but I have a complicated relationship with a family member. It's my brother. We've kind of been estranged and we have very different views of the world, and it makes it challenging. Well, you know, it was funny. Past 2 weeks, a friend of mine was sharing, and then his wife started sharing. Turns out they have complicated relationships with family members. And then I started sort of asking people, and it turns out I'm not alone. We all have these complicated relationships. Well, what does that have to do with why I support Friends? What I've learned in my time here at the spiritual gym is how to be more patient with my brother, how to sort of let me accept what he's willing to give to the relationship versus what I want from the relationship, and try to do that with kindness. I wish I could tell you that transformation just happened overnight. Oh, it was easy, it was simple. Jeff or Vince did one of those messages, hallelujah, the angels shone down, and I just got it. Maybe you're smart, and you did, I did not. And I'm still working on that. And Alessandra said that today as well. We go through waves where sometimes we're working and it looks like everything's moving forward, and then we move back, just like a gym. So this is a great cause. It's why I give dollars to it. I believe in supporting, and it's made me a better person, which is great. And that process is not done, which is also good for everyone who loves me in my life. They're like, oh, yeah, you got work to do. They've got a list for me, don't worry. And I'm hoping that you will also support this wonderful gym and keep it going, because we're doing great through this, and it's an exciting time, and we still need to keep sort of building up our fitness. Thank you, and turning it over to Vince.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Friends Church. Little log jam here. Apologies for the weird audio and video thing for those watching at home. Seems that YouTube is angry at us today. It happens. But I'm glad we can still be here and kind of figure this all out and be at the gym. Next week, again, a reminder, we are having public in-person gathering options. So if you're a person who wants to come in, it's pretty exciting. We got a lot of work to do before we get there to keep it all safe and sound. We've already had, 15 people signed up who want to come in. We're capping it at 50. If you want to come and attend next week, go on, sign up. friendschurch.ca/in-person. We have to have sign-ups because there's a bunch of rules we have to follow. But we'd love to have you in here. There'd be great energy. It'd be great to see you live at the gym. And man, the music has been killing it lately. You got to hear it here, because this building makes it sound insanely good. Okay, let me transition out of that to something pretty exciting. A couple months ago, we sent out a message to you guys saying, so a couple years ago, Carmen took over the kids area. We needed him to. We were desperate. The way the organization was working, we needed him there. And being Carmen, the amazing guy he is, he stepped in and gave it his all. If you've seen the Video Time with Carmen videos, you know that he's all in. But about 6 months ago, he said, guys, there's some other stuff I want to do in my life, and the kids area and that stuff isn't working together. I need the time to put in this other stuff. So we kind of talked with him a little bit and said, okay, what does it look like? And he said, well, I love Switch. I live for Switch. I want to do Switch. But let's hire somebody who can put all their energy into kids. And so we started a search. Friend Church is a pretty unique place, so the search is kind of weird how we did it. But we kind of had a ringer in the back of our mind that we'd been watching for a while. And so we did a bunch of interviews, and in the interview, this person just wowed us. We kind of finished the interview, we all looked at each other and went, yeah, that's the one. And so today, after a lengthy delay, we're going to start her right when COVID hit. So she's been kind of sitting around going, okay, guys, when do I start? And so officially, last week-ish, give or take, she's kind of officially part-time starting. We're ramping her in. She's trying to deal with some stuff in her life. We're trying to get her involved here. So I want to introduce you officially, our kids pastor. Her technical title is Kids Ministry Director. She picked that one, but she's the kids pastor. But I want to give a big welcome to Tara Hart. Come on up. Tara.
Hi.
Feels like this has been a long time coming, isn't it?
It kind of does, yeah.
Because we signed the contract and everything, and then was within a couple days, I think, COVID hit, wasn't it?
It was pretty quickly after
Yeah,
I
and
signed
then
on, yeah.
everything just kind of went down the toilet in the world.
Yeah,
How has been, so you have 2 kids, right?
I do. I
Oldest?
have a 10-year-old daughter named Jordana
Okay.
and a 7-year-old son named Easton.
Nice, and so they've been home, and you've been homeschooling?
Homeschooling,
How's that going?
it's over. Woohoo!
Yeah, well done.
Finally.
Good work.
It actually was pretty good. They were pretty resilient,
Okay.
and they actually enjoyed having me as a teacher, so that helped a lot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, you're married, your husband's a firefighter, right?
He is.
But how did you find Friends Church?
Well, we moved to Calgary about 5 years ago. Both my husband and I had sort of endured a bit of loss and some changes and some moves. And so we came to Calgary, and I was really looking for sort of a sense of community for myself, my husband, and my kids.
Okay.
And I met an amazing friend who introduced me, and we started coming to the services. And then my kids downstairs were loving it, so Carmen had an opening for a volunteer position, so I actually jumped on that to kind of see what was going on downstairs because I'd been dropping my kids off, and ended up spending a lot more time downstairs than I did actually upstairs.
I noticed at the beginning, because you're a photographer, right?
I am.
And so some of my favorite images from last year are ones that you shot for us.
Thank
so
you.
that's how I knew you, and then all of a sudden Carmen stole you away, and I was
Right.
like, geez. So how has it been volunteering with the kids?
It's great. I really enjoy. I wasn't able to come as often as I actually would have liked, just given scheduling with everything in life.
Your husband works shift work, right?
He works shift work.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 4 on, 4 off, that kind of thing?
Normally, during COVID, he's actually working 24-hour shifts, which is interesting.
I'm sure. Okay, so
Yeah.
you've been downstairs, and your daughter often volunteers with you, right?
She does. She really loves joining me and spending time sort of helping organize the crafts, and she really enjoys coming. Both my kids do, actually, but she kind of likes taking the lead on some of the activities.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Friends Church isn't the only place that you volunteer with kids, is that correct?
Yes. I've always volunteered both my kids' classes. Since preschool. I've been in their class kind of helping just on field trips and with activities, different events. And then, recently I took on, my daughter's leaving grade 4, so she's entering grade 5, leaving the school for middle school. So I took on sort of curating and planning and implementing a memory book for the grade 4s.
Nice.
Because they're not obviously having a farewell gathering, so.
So your 2 passions, kids and photography, kind of
Right.
coming together.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's been fun.
That's fantastic. Now, you also have your training. So your formal training is actually in criminology, is that what it is?
Criminology, yeah.
But specifically in youth.
My training is in criminology. I just have always really had an interest in people and sort of wanting to have a place to make their lives better. So I have a lot of experience. I worked with at-risk youth.
Okay.
I've worked in the court system with young offenders. I've worked in family law.
Wow.
So a lot of more, I have a criminology background working with kids. And then once I had my own children, that passion of spending time with families and children just kind of progressed with being in the school, meeting all kinds of families there, and then also with photography. It just started as a passion, taking photos of my own children, and friends started noticing and having their own children and wanting images, and it kind of just progressed into a family photography business just out of
Nice.
that, love of children and families.
So when we first posted the job, what was your first reaction to that?
I was pretty excited. I ironically had actually just started a really great position, totally
Sorry about that,
different
we stole
field
her.
in marketing,
Okay.
which was exciting. But when I saw the posting for this position, my heart kind of skipped a beat because I thought, well, that would be such a great opportunity. As I was transitioning back to a full-time work or getting back into the workforce after being home with kids for so long,
Right.
this position just kind of checked off everything that I was looking for, and so I was pretty excited.
And we got to say, when we were in the interview and you said you just love working with kids and your face lit up, that's when we had us all sold. But you have
Yeah.
some ideas around kind of, can you give anyone hints of what kids is going to look like in the next little while, or what do you want to say? I'll leave
Well,
you
I
to
don't
say.
know how much to say about that, but
Okay.
we are looking at, we're definitely working on some relaunch strategies
Nice.
for the kids program. I'm really excited to be able to be in this role, especially during this time. I feel like to be in this position and be able to help these kids navigate these challenging times. Well, I know kids are incredibly resilient, but be able to put a really positive lens on life and the world right now for them. And
even what they can do. You see signs of kids writing like, thank you.
Oh, it's amazing.
Like, so cool.
Even this morning, my daughter actually left a card outside my door that said, "Your big day," because she knew I was incredibly nervous to show up here today. And then she said,
This is you
"Be
nervous,
brave."
by the way?
Pardon?
This is you nervous?
This is me nervous.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're doing really well.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So kids definitely bring so much joy. Like Alessandro said, kids are definitely my passion. And I think that their absolute innate joy and kindness and resilience is just inspiring. And I'm so excited to get to know the families and these children a little bit more and put my creative spin on things.
Thank you very much. We're
Yeah.
super excited to have you here. Everyone, let's
Thank
give a
you.
round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, folks, you'll probably be hearing from Tara over the next little while, parents, volunteers, the whole works. And if you have any questions, give her an email, tara@friendschurch.ca. We're pretty lucky to have her, and we're excited to see what she does over the next little while. And with that, I'll transition it over to Jeff. Do you want a stool?
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
great. Thanks.
Then let me...
Thanks, Vince, and welcome, Tara. Great to have you aboard the Rowdy Friends Church ship. That's awesome. Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to Friends Church. Glad you're here today, listening in wherever you are. Hopefully you're not needing to be outside for very long. It's a little soggy around here in Calgary. Hey, I want to start off, today's the last message of this Path to Joy series. I was reflecting on a number of different things. I remembered a story from high school. I was grade 12. I remember experiencing my first real, for today's message, I'm going to call it a compassion buzz. It was actually a phone call from a mom that called me I was room and boarding with a family in Calgary. I was in grade 12. Moved to Calgary to graduate with a bunch of friends, and I was attending a church. Anyways, this mom calls me out of the blue, and she starts by saying, "Jeff, you don't know who I am, but you know my son, Doug." And instantly, I knew a Doug. I didn't know him very well, but I knew a Doug, and so I was like, okay. Doug was a new kid to our youth group. I was involved in the church for a long period of time, and grade 12 now I knew kids all over the place, and I was taking maybe a little bit more of a role there. And anyways, Doug was new to the church. He showed up at one of our youth events, kind of shy, insecure. There was one particular event where everyone was getting paired off, and Doug ended up being the odd man out. Now you can imagine, he's at one of his first events. Everyone's supposed to pair themselves off, and there's Doug standing by himself. I remember looking over and seeing this kid, didn't know who he was, but I knew he was new, and I can just tell he is dying. And in the moment, I didn't know what to do or whatever, but man, I tell you, it was in that moment, watching him, something happened. Doug felt, I developed a soft spot for Doug. And we finished the game, and then after that, I just kind of started reaching out to him. It was no big deal, but I felt for him, and so, anyways, his mom's calling me. And she says, you don't know me, but you know my son, Doug, and I just wanted to call and thank you for reaching out to him. Whatever you're doing, it's changed the game for him. He went from hating church, hating whatever, to now wanting to be at, cannot miss any event. And I'm on the phone, I'm going, I'm not sure you got the right guy. I haven't really done much. I had called him leading up to an event, just saying, hey, Doug, you coming? I want him to know that, hey, someone was going to be there who's wanting him to be there. And, and then when you get there, I'd maybe introduce him to a few people and make sure that he was left alone for very long. But really, like, in the grand scheme of things, it was like this much. Here's this mom calling me going, thank you, because it's changed the game for my kid. So I got off the phone and I can't even explain this buzz hit. I don't remember having experienced that like that prior to that. Like that, it was just like, whoa, I made a difference in Doug's life. Now Doug, I would have never known by how Doug acts around me. But I remember the impact of that phone call. The dawning on me that I had done something that had made a difference. In fact, I might be so bold as to say that phone call might have influenced me into doing even what I'm doing today. Like, it was such an intense feeling that I felt. Have you ever felt something like that? Have you ever experienced a compassion buzz? Over the years, I've watched people experience the same kind of thing. I remember seeing it during the floods of Calgary. For those that were a part of that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I remember being with Kathy and our boys down in Bowness. We were among hundreds and hundreds that had converged on a site where the river had overran its banks and had literally, just swamped home after home after home in a number of mile area. We were down there walking the sidewalks trying to figure out, okay, which home needs it, whatever. We'd walk in and the smell of mildew and mold was already taken over. They would, this gracious family would lead us down into the basement that was just like knee-high in mud. We were pulling waterlogged furniture out and stuff that was so heavy. Everything was so grimy and dirty, and it was hot. We get outside, mosquitoes are buzzing. It was just nasty. The piles of garbage that were so high. But the thing that you watched, no matter where you went in those areas, were volunteers with these huge grins on their faces. Like, everyone is mud everywhere, sweating like buckets, but just filled with this sense of we're doing something that's meaningful, that's making a difference in someone's life. We're doing something for someone who would have no hope of doing this on their own. I call it the compassion buzz. One of my sons was in grade 10. He came back from Mexico, and I could tell he had experienced one. He told us about the key ceremony. If you've been around Friends Church, you've heard about these infamous key ceremonies. They're the moment when we turn over the keys of a home that we've just built for a needy family. We turn over the keys to them and we present them to this family. And I'm telling you, if you've ever seen it, it is like the biggest punch in the gut. It is so emotional watching these families. When my kid comes home, he begins talking about this thing. It just gripped me. He couldn't tell me without crying. He said, "Mom, Dad, this mom, with her little kids, she just starts bawling and bawling. She can't even look at us. And then she says, you guys are the answers to my prayers. I prayed for so long to be able to provide a safe place for my family." So my kid, he's grade 10. He's trying to tell me this story. And the emotion is, and I'm just like, I can't stand it, pal. Man, this is amazing. And he says, "Dad, I'm going back." It marked him so bad. It's so deep, so bad, so deep. My kid's got this tattoo on his arm, this pail that represents taking water. He's got the name of this soup kitchen down in Mexico that they helped tattooed across his chest. Marked him. Acts of compassion. When they land, it is undeniable the way they can just supercharge the system. There's something that goes on. You know what? This isn't a figment of your imagination. It's not just some sappy moment. Did you know that even science says something goes on when you help, when you change a life, when you do something meaningful? They say something happens neurochemically. They call it the helper's high. It just gets in you and it starts turning the gears. Scientists have actually confirmed it. They say endorphins are released in our brain, leading to this euphoric state. Experts say that the same reward center of our brain lights up when you're thinking about chocolate or something that you just love the taste of. It's the exact same endorphins that flood your system as when you do something that changes someone's life, when you do something good that helps someone. That warm feeling, it's oxytocin, this hormone producing feelings of love and social bonding and well-being. It's a real thing they call the helper's high. I call it a compassion buzz. It literally makes your heart happy and healthy. The Dalai Lama was not fooling around when he said this quote. He said, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. It is so true of all the things that we've been talking about over the last few weeks that bring joy. What I'm bringing before you this morning is the ultimate win-win. By engaging in compassion, not only are you able to alleviate suffering in someone else, to potentially put a smile on their face, to make their life a little bit better, but in the process, you're actually doing something good inside yourself. You're stirring up joy, this deep joy. You're creating something inside you that leaves you better, not just the person you're helping. Which makes me think that Jesus was no fool. I mean, lately I've wondered if Jesus didn't have some ulterior motives behind all the compassion that he was, because that guy bled. He was so moved with compassion again and again. If you've read through his life, his stories in the Gospels, you just read of again and again. He walks in, he sees people, he's moved with compassion. And then he would do something about it. He had a radar for human suffering. He couldn't ignore it. He would notice people on the margins in a world of hurt, and he would say, no, that's not right. Something's got to be done here. He'd see people who are hungry. He'd say, guys, we're feeding these people today. Meanwhile, his disciples are going, what the heck? Jesus, no. People who are blind from birth, he would want to heal them. He'd want to do something about it. He would just feel so deeply for them. There were lepers who were banned from society, forced to live outside the villages. Can you imagine one of your family members contracting leprosy? They cannot even live with you. Now they're forced out to the perimeter of a village where they live in isolation, treated like some kind of scourge. What does Jesus do? He's like, no. He walked right into those leper villages, touching them, treating them like humans. He was moved by people's pain, compelled to do things that would alleviate their suffering, even if it was just for a moment. What about the people that blew it? The people who had made moral mistakes, people who had made ethical mistakes, people who had let people down, and now were kind of the brunt of the joke or the brunt of judgment. Jesus was always the one running in and defending, holding off the judgment of people and saying, whoa, 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 whoa. If you've never done this before, if you're not guilty of anything, that's fine. Cast the first stone. He felt compassion. It almost seems like Jesus was speaking from his own experience when he said this. He said, you help and you give without expecting any return. And you'll never, I promise you, regret it. He said, live out this God-created identity, the way our Father lives toward us. He had this image, it seems anyways, of this being out there that was generous and gracious toward him and toward others. He said, be compassionate, just like God is compassionate toward us. He said, I promise you, you'll never regret it. I think what confuses some about compassion is that we can get duped into thinking that every act of compassion will bring about a smile, will bring about tears of joy, gratitude, warm fuzzies. I should be careful as I talk about the compassion buzz to not mislead people into thinking that every act of compassion is some kind of love fest or it ends that way. Because the truth is, some acts of compassion seem to backfire. Some go sideways. And if you've ever engaged in acts of compassion, you'll know what I'm likely talking about. Not everyone ends up with this, oh man, do I feel good about myself. No, sometimes, you can reach out and find out the sacrifice wasn't really necessary. You book off a busy day for a family who's moving and you say, no, I'll help. No worries. And you book off you say no to a whole bunch of different things and you show up and all of a sudden you see this army of people. You're like you're like a million minions all doing this thing and you're going, man, of all the things I could have been doing today. Or worse yet, you're moving and you drop something of theirs and damage it, and now they're pissed off at you. And you're going, what the heck? I'm trying to help, and now I'm... or the person doesn't thank you. Sometimes it can lead to an expectation of more help. As soon as you said yes to one thing, now that seems they're calling again and again. Yeah. Anyone who's allowed themselves to be moved by compassion many times, you'll have a story or two. And because of that, sadly, I know I've spoken with some who have just concluded, you know what, the compassion game, it maybe works for some, but I'm out. It's not worth it. It's too risky. Some of these kind of people, they look away from those in need. They turn a blind eye. They've just learned it's just not worth the hassle. They refuse to get sucked in, to feel or to empathize, let alone respond to the plight of those who are suffering. And I think any person that's watching me right now, none of you would ever admit to wanting to be that person. But I can tell you from experience, it's easy to become that person, or at least start leaning that way. Once you've been burned once or twice by caring too much or giving too much and they're not quite going how you had expected, yeah, it's easy to kind of say, nah, not this time. Nah, not this time. I mean, I'd love to say that I've always had this compassionate eye that's always cared for and reached out to the Dougs in my life. I would love to say that. But man, I tell you, I am one guy that has found it very easy to all of a sudden just kind of, you see something, all of a sudden you're just like, yeah, I didn't see that. Don't look, Jeff. Don't say yes to that, Jeff. There have been times when I found myself closing off, refusing to see the need, refusing to look the person in the eye that I know is in trouble. Instead, I think what happens is I start a conversation in my head, rationalizing why I need my money, why I need my time worse, why I shouldn't get involved. And hey, don't get me wrong, sometimes it's legit. Sometimes I need to say no. But boy, I tell you, it's easy to start leaning. I can also tell you from experience that this response, you do it one too many times. You start spitting out the, oh, I'm really sorry, I just can't, one too many times. And it can easily begin to shift into a little bit of a semi-narcissistic, is there something in this for me kind of thing? Like, why would I say yes to helping? A me-only attitude. In the short term, yeah, it feels good. Feels good being able to dodge a bullet, not have to give up $20 to help that person or a couple hours of your time or whatever it is. But in the long term, by focusing exclusively, by leaning into this kind of selfish, self-centered kind of place in life that says, look, unless it's helping me in some way, where we completely ignore the hassles, it's crazy how hollow life can become. This is the flip side, the dark side of just avoiding the compassion opportunity. You say no a number of times. You avoid the hassles long enough. And this lack of compassion begins to color even your friendships. Have you ever felt that? There's this constant keeping of score. Okay, so yeah, I can do that for you, but then what is coming back? Or let's just make sure we understand. You owe me one. Or let's just make sure we're clear. I've given you 3 hours of my time with nothing coming back. Stinginess starts moving in, refuses to just help, to just give generously when it's needed, unless it can be paid back. The narcissism of this tendency can easily begin to make people, make friendships, make just the relationships that we're in easily discardable. The minute the other party can't pull their weight, or at that point when that difficult season that person has been going kind of starts stretching out longer, now mental math starts happening. Starts saying, you know what? I would probably be better off to just kind of gently exit this relationship, because this is needing a little much right now. Don't be fooled. Refusing to care, it can lead to these empty places. You got all the time in the world. Maybe you got all the resources in the world, but you've got no one to share it with. When Jesus said you'll never regret living generously and compassionately, I think he knew the odds. He knew that this generous, caring way of life delivers probably 100 times what the narcissistic life can. I think he was betting that, yeah, you're going to have some bad raw deals. You're going to have some times when you don't get a thank you. You're going to have some times when you're going to look at it and go, wow, that didn't give me what I thought it would right then and there. But I'm betting he was looking at the bigger, longer picture saying, you know what? What's going to happen inside of you over the long term is... Can I just ask you, like, where would you rate your compassion meter? Would you say that you tend to be open to the needs of others? Do you find yourself wanting to just kind of pretend you didn't see anything and keep walking? How often would you find yourself saying, okay, I know I had plans here, but I think this is more important. Let me give here. Would you find yourself like me, kind of saying, I think I could use a little more? Would you be willing to be more compassionate this week? If for no other reason, then there's a chance that in doing so, you might feel this welling up of joy underneath it all. It says, man, I did the right thing. I did something good. I did something that alleviated some pain for that person. I'm betting that there is someone you know in your life right now who could use a little shot of compassion. Maybe it's an encouraging phone call. Maybe it's just a little gift to say, I appreciate you. Maybe it's a visit over lunch. Maybe it's reaching out to them through text and just going, you are not alone. I know I can't be there all the time, but I am thinking about you. I'm here. Maybe you know someone who's just in a real tight squeeze right now and needs some groceries or help with something that needs fixing. Like you know the stories that are represented around you, the lives that you bump into, that you work with, that you live near. Would you refuse to look the other way this week? Would you insist saying, you know what? I'm going to prepare myself to say yes to something in some way to alleviate someone's suffering. You know, I don't know about you, but what I find is sometimes the people around me who need the most compassion are the ones I'm least likely to give it to. Isn't that ironic? There are some people in my life right now who I know need compassion, but I don't want to give it because they bugged me. They annoyed me. They said something that hurt me one time. Or, you know what, one time I helped. There's just history there. And yet right now when I think about it, I know people that are so close to me that I've been looking right past. It's almost like in my head I'm saying anyone but that person. And I'm wondering if I need to rethink that. Just ask the question, would this person in my life be the one that I should respond to again? You know, maybe as I'm talking about all of this, maybe you're sitting there going, man, I can't think of anyone around me who really needs any compassion. Now, maybe everyone in your world is absolutely fine, okay? Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe everyone's got their life together and no one needs anything. I don't know what the chances are of that, but that's a chance. Or maybe there's just a chance that you're not seeing it or you're not feeling it. And that happens. In fact, I think that happens often. Because this thing called compassion, it actually is like a muscle that if you don't use, you lose. Do you know that? It's a muscle that needs to be developed. So to close this morning, I just want to lead you through something that I think might help. If maybe right now you're just going, yeah, I'm not really noticing nor feeling moved to help. One thing about compassion is that it has to begin with seeing and feeling and understanding what another person is actually experiencing. We call it empathy. It's the foundation of compassion. And I just to close, I thought I would just try to show you kind of what you can do to feel it, to stir up that muscle of empathy. True story, there's a woman we know who moved to Canada after marrying a Canadian a few years back. But their marriage began to fall apart. In fact, it completely evaporated and has ended in a divorce. Her status here in Canada now is jeopardized. She just found out that her young adult son, her only kid, will be able to stay in Canada. But there is a very strong chance that she will have to leave. It's all coming down to an uncontestable decision that will be made in the next few days. I want you to just put yourself in her shoes just for a second. Imagine what she might be feeling right in this moment as she is getting ready to await the final decision. As she's contemplating what it's going to be like as she has to say goodbye to her only kid, who will stay, as she begins thinking about starting all over, financially, relationally, rebuilding a community in the land she once knew as home. But man, it is a world of difference from here that she's come to know in Canada. Think about her having to find a job, how long it might take for her to be able to afford to come back and visit her kid. Oh, just sit with those uncomfortable feelings. This is empathy, where you feel the pain. You take off your own glasses, your own lenses that you see life with, and you take that person's lens and you put them on. Oh. Many of us believe we have empathy, and on some level, nearly all of us do. But many times, our narcissism, our selfishness, just the busyness of our lives, sometimes unintentionally, we get so focused in that we rarely put on the glasses of people around us. But when you do, when you begin kind of wrestling with what might be going on in their lives, it's amazing what gets stirred up. I want you to do this right now for someone you know. You think of any person in your life. Maybe it's a coworker. Maybe it's someone you manage, one of your employees. Maybe it's a neighbor. Just think about that person. Get a name of a person, a picture, a person in your mind right in this moment. And I want you to put yourself in their shoes. I want you to try to imagine what their life is like. Think about the things that cause them anxiety and stress. Imagine what kind of pain they might feel in their life in light of what they're going on. Could there be anxiety and fear that's wreaking havoc? Is there some kind of shame that they might feel from something that's happened in their life? A financial wobble, a relational problem? Is there insecurity that they battle? What would that feel like? You know, once you can empathize with another person, once you can put on their lens and you can look into their life and imagine what they might be feeling, to understand their humanity and their suffering, the next step is to want to actually free that person in some way from their suffering. This is the heart of compassion. Actually, this is the definition of it. When you not just feel what someone's feeling, but then you go, I got to do something for them. I want you in your mind to just take this a bit further. Go back to that person you were just thinking about. Now imagine again that you're the one who's going through what they're going through. You're feeling it. You're imagining their experience. Now think for a second how much you would want your suffering to end. how badly you would want your situation to get resolved. Just imagine it for a second. How great it would feel if whatever was going on could just go away. Now imagine how amazing it would be if someone actually reached out and said, I want to help. I see what you're going through, and I want to do something to help you. I want to end this. Now, if you've ever been the person who's been on the receiving end of compassion, you know already. You don't have to imagine very hard. You know how good that feels. Someone looks at you in the eyes and says, we're making this go away today. I am here. We're going to fix that problem. In that process of just imagining, just open your heart to this person now. And if you feel just even a little that you would want to end their suffering, I want you to reflect on that feeling. Reflect on that right there. That's the feeling. That's the muscle. When you go, no, I can't just see it. I can't just feel it. I want to do something for that, to fix that. That feeling, that muscle needs to get exercised. Oh, we don't get there overnight. It takes practice. The real challenge comes when you start looking at people that you're frustrated with already, or people that you don't even know. That's black belt compassion. Jesus says, shoot, anyone can love someone who's close to them. Love your enemy. Love the person that's pissed you off. Yeah, give generously and love that person. Black belt. That's the realm where the joy, when you start doing it, with or without the compassion budge, you know down deep you're working out a win-win. You're making your world better, and yet down deep you're doing something inside that says there's something right about this. Let me go back to the question I was asking earlier. Would you be willing to cultivate some compassion this week? Live with a little more love. It's my hope. Not only will you make someone's life better, but I'm telling you, I feel like you will tap into some of the joy that starts boiling underneath when you're doing something you know down deep it's the right thing. And you might get some buzz out of it too. That'd be bonus. Look, at next week we're kicking off our new series, Stranger Danger. In a day and age where we are facing racism like we've never experienced, it seems, or confronted, could there be any greater time than to talk about what it means to love someone who feels like a stranger to you? You won't want to miss it. Vince will kick it off. That's happening next week, next Sunday. Join us for that. Also, discussion group is going to happen at 12 today. You can tap into that. The link is on our site and on our app. Have a great week and live compassionately, would you? Come on. Don't just feel it. Do something about it. See you next week.